Imagine you're an IT director at a mid-sized company with maybe 800 employees. You've got a deadline from your board to modernize the tech stack, reduce security exposure, and show progress. Microsoft has been in your ear for months. Windows 11 is the future, they say. It's faster, it's more secure, and it's where everything is heading. So you start the rollout, you push the update, and then your phones start ringing. Developers can't run their tools. Legacy software that your finance team has used for a decade just stopped working. A mission-critical application that cost you $250,000 a year in licensing fees has become incompatible. You spend 3 weeks rolling everything back. You write an internal memo explaining why Windows 11 is now on indefinite hold. And you find out almost by accident that hundreds of companies just like yours did the same thing. That memo you wrote, there are 500 versions of it sitting in IT departments across America right now. This is a documented, measurable, and enterprise-wide revolt against one of Microsoft's most important operating system rollouts in years. To understand the full story, let's go back to October 2021. Microsoft officially launches Windows 11. The pitch is everything you'd expect. A cleaner interface, direct storage for faster load times, better integration with Teams, enhanced security through TPM 2.0 requirements. On paper, it sounded like a genuine generational leap. And for consumers, regular everyday users buying new laptops, it mostly was. The reviews were decent. The transition felt smooth for people starting fresh. But enterprises don't start fresh. Enterprises inherit decades of technical debt. They have software ecosystems that were built on top of Windows 7, migrated reluctantly to Windows 10, and stitched together with integrations, custom scripts, and vendor-locked applications that nobody fully understands anymore. For those organizations, Windows 11 wasn't a fresh start. It was a minefield. The TPM 2.0 requirement was the first domino. Microsoft mandated that any machine running Windows 11 needed a trusted platform module version 2.0 chip. The security reasoning is legitimate. TPM 2.0 provides hardware-level encryption and makes certain classes of attacks significantly harder. But here's the problem. A massive portion of enterprise hardware, particularly machines purchased between 2015 and 2019, either had no TPM chip at all or had TPM 1.2, which didn't qualify. Gartner estimated in 2022 that roughly 60% of enterprise PCs in active use at that time did not meet Windows 11's minimum hardware requirements. 60%. That's not a minor compatibility gap. That's a capital expenditure crisis disguised as a software update. And that was before you even got to the application layer. Because here's where the story gets genuinely uncomfortable. Microsoft had been pushing Windows 11 with strong language around compatibility. Their PC health check tool was supposed to tell organizations exactly which machines would qualify and which wouldn't. But enterprise IT teams started discovering something that the marketing materials didn't mention. The tool was built primarily with consumer hardware in mind. It didn't account for the complexity of enterprise software environments. It would tell you your hardware was compatible, you'd run the upgrade, and then a line of business application, something your warehouse runs on. Something your compliance team can't function without would simply break. Not degrade, break. And Microsoft's own compatibility database, which vendors are supposed to update when their software is ready for a new OS, was riddled with gaps. Major software vendors hadn't certified their products for Windows 11. Some hadn't even started testing. The Spiceworks Ziff Davis survey from late 2022 found that only 15% of organizations had fully deployed Windows 11 at that point. By comparison, Windows 10 had reached over 50% enterprise deployment within the same timeframe post-launch. That gap is enormous, and it wasn't closing fast. By mid-2023, enterprise adoption was still lagging significantly behind consumer adoption, a reversal of the typical pattern where enterprises, incentivized by support contracts and volume licensing, usually lead or at least closely follow consumer transitions. Now here's the part nobody talks about, and I want you to lean in for a second because this is where the story changes shape. The real villain in this script isn't Microsoft's engineering team. It's not even the TPM requirement or the compatibility gaps, as frustrating as those are. The real villain is a business model decision that Microsoft made years ago. one that prioritized artificial hardware refresh cycles over actual enterprise readiness. Think about what TPM 2.0 effectively did. It rendered hundreds of millions of perfectly functional machines ineligible for the new OS machines that could run Windows 10 without complaint, handle modern workloads, connect to the internet, and run productivity software, suddenly declared incompatible. Not because they couldn't handle the user experience, but because they lacked one specific chip. And who benefits when enterprises are forced to replace hardware? Hardware manufacturers who have OEM relationships with Microsoft. The PC market was in a slump heading into 2021. The pandemic boom had ended. Refresh cycles were slowing down. Windows 11's hardware requirements, whether intentionally or not, created a forcing function. Buy new machines. Now, the victims in this story are the IT directors, the CFOs, and the small to mid-sized businesses who found themselves caught between Microsoft's roadmap and their own budget realities, with no good options on the table. But what Microsoft did next is where it gets genuinely complicated. Microsoft, to its credit, did not completely ignore the backlash. In late 2022 and into 2023, they began quietly expanding support timelines and softening some of their earlier absolutism. Windows 10 end of life, originally set for October 2025, became a rallying point for enterprise IT managers who needed more time. Microsoft announced an extended security updates program, essentially a paid extension, that would allow organizations to continue receiving patches for Windows 10 beyond the deadline. They also invested more heavily in their Windows 11 compatibility tooling, and they started working more aggressively with independent software vendors to accelerate certification. These were not small gestures. They were signs that Microsoft felt the pressure and understood that a forced march was not working. But, and this is critical, those accommodations came with strings attached and costs attached. Extended security updates are not free. Organizations that want continued protection on Windows 10 machines past October 2025 will have to pay per device, per year on a sliding scale. Year 1 is manageable. Year 3 is a significant budget line. What Microsoft effectively created is a situation where you either absorb the capital cost of hardware replacement or you absorb the operational cost of extended security coverage. Either way, you're paying more than you were before. The compromise isn't really a compromise, it's a different kind of pressure. By early 2024, Lansweeper, a company that audits enterprise IT environments and has visibility into millions of devices globally, published data showing that Windows 11 had reached only about 8% of enterprise devices in their dataset, while Windows 10 held over 68%. Consumer adoption was around 28% by that same period. The chasm between enterprise and consumer uptake had widened, not narrowed. And in their notes, Lansweeper specifically called out hardware incompatibility as the primary blocker, followed closely by application compatibility concerns. This wasn't a sample of a few hundred companies. This was data from millions of endpoints across industries, including healthcare, finance, manufacturing, and government. The community response has been fascinating to watch. On forums like Reddit's sysadmin community and on platforms like Spiceworks, the discourse shifted around mid-2023 from frustration to something closer to organized resistance. One thread on the sysadmin subreddit, upvoted into the tens of thousands, wasn't a troubleshooting post. It was a fully structured internal briefing template that IT professionals could hand directly to their leadership to justify delaying Windows 11 indefinitely. It included cost projections, compatibility risk matrices, and citations from Gartner and Lansweeper. People didn't just share it, they refined it. They added to it, they turned a forum post into a living document. That is what organized resistance looks like. And the phrase that kept appearing across every platform, the one that captured the mood better than any analyst report ever could, was this: Windows 11 is a solution to a problem we don't have. That line spread because it was true, and because every IT professional who read it felt seen. So, why does this matter right now today in 2026? Because the October 2025 deadline has come and gone. Windows 10 is now officially at the end of its extended support window for most users and organizations. The security calculus has changed. Every day that an enterprise runs an unpatched Windows 10 endpoint is a day that endpoint is a potential entry point. Ransomware operators know the end-of-life schedule. They track it. They have historically ramped up campaigns targeting operating systems in their EOL window because they know the patch pipeline has dried up. This is not speculation. WannaCry in 2017 tore through organizations running unpatched Windows XP and Windows 7 machines and caused an estimated $4 billion in global damages. The playbook hasn't changed, only the target has. The threat is not hypothetical. It is structural and it is timed. Your organization's exposure is a function of how many Windows 10 devices you still have running and how aggressively those devices are connected to sensitive systems. And if the answer to either of those is more than a few, you need to be moving right now. Here is what you should actually do starting this week. First, run a full hardware audit. Not a mental estimate, not a quick look at your asset tracking sheet, a real audit. Tools like Lansweeper, Qualys, or even Microsoft's own Intune can give you device-level hardware specs across your fleet. You need to know exactly how many machines are TPM 2.0 compliant and how many aren't. That number will determine your budget and your migration strategy. Second, identify your application blockers before you touch a single machine. Stand up a Windows 11 test environment, even a small one, and start running your line of business applications against it. Work through your vendor list. For anything that isn't certified, open a ticket with your vendor and get a timeline in writing. Undocumented incompatibilities discovered mid-rollout are what caused most of the enterprise horror stories we talked about. Third, if you have a significant number of non-compliant machines and you can't replace them immediately, evaluate the Extended Security Updates program seriously. Calculate the per-device cost over the time you need and compare it against hardware replacement costs. For some organizations, paying for ESU while you do a phased hardware refresh is the financially rational choice. Fourth, segment your network around your legacy machines. If you have endpoints that will be unpatched for any period of time, they should not be on your primary network segment. VLAN them. Limit their access, treat them as untrusted until they're migrated or replaced. This is basic network hygiene, but it becomes essential when you're running EOL software. Fifth, build an internal communication plan. Your end users, your department heads, your board, they all need to understand what's changing and why. The IT teams that navigated this best were the ones that got ahead of the narrative. They framed the migration not as a Microsoft mandate, but as a security necessity driven by real threat data. When your leadership understands the ransomware risk attached to unpatched EOL endpoints, the conversation about hardware refresh budgets gets a lot easier. The bigger picture here is this. What happened with Windows 11 enterprise adoption is a symptom of a deeper tension in enterprise software. The tension between a vendor's roadmap and the operational reality of the organizations they serve. Microsoft is not evil. They are a business with engineering timelines, market incentives, and security responsibilities that are genuinely complex. But this rollout exposed a communication failure, a tooling failure, and a trust failure that cost enterprises real money in real time. And those aren't abstract losses. That's delayed projects. That's IT teams burning weekends, rolling back failed deployments. That's budget conversations nobody wanted to have. The lesson isn't that you should distrust Microsoft or resist every update on principle. The lesson is that you should never let a vendor's deadline become your crisis through passivity. Enterprise IT has always required a certain discipline, a willingness to plan ahead, stress test assumptions, and pressure check vendor promises against your own operational reality. Windows 11 didn't invent that requirement. It just punished the organizations that had stopped practicing it. The organizations that are in the best shape right now are the ones that started asking hard questions in 2022, built migration plans in 2023, and executed with discipline in 2024 and 2025. They didn't wait for perfect conditions. They made decisions with incomplete information and adjusted as they went. The ones who are in pain right now are the ones who hoped the problem would resolve itself. It didn't. It rarely does. And the next deadline is already on the calendar. If this video helped you think through your own Windows 11 situation, or gave you ammunition for a conversation you've been dreading with your leadership team, drop a comment below and tell me where your organization stands. Are you fully migrated, still fighting the hardware battle, or somewhere in between? If you want more content like this, real enterprise IT analysis without the hype, subscribing is the move. And share this with whoever in your organization is still pretending this deadline isn't their problem. Because it absolutely is.